there are 3 people in the space that all coming from different angles, and they didn't really know each other up until very recently. These 3 people are Paul Saladino. The Liver King.
I wish we had his first name. Liver King.
Brian Johnson.
Oh, never mind. I like Liver King.
I fucking killed that guy. I'm the Liver King. Now he's Liver King 2.0.
Yeah, okay.
And then Max Lugavere.
Max, okay.
So here's 3 people. Paul Saladino is a doctor, and he realized that you get very little, if any, nutrition training while being an MD. So he dove off the deep end because not only is he a smart dude, but he figured out what is the optimal diet for humans. Then you have the Liver King, whose 2 kids were going in anaphylactic shock when they were younger, like a year old. And if he didn't make a change, his kids were going to die. And then there's Max Lugavere, who lost his mother to dementia. And my understanding is he's a journalist or reporter or something of the sort. I forget that part about his history.
You're right. I didn't forget. That's right.
But he wanted to study once his mom was passing of dementia. He was like, hey, like, what's causing this? What can we do to help, eliminate dementia?
He pretty much tried to hack dementia, right? Like
Exactly.
He's like the best ever now.
All 3 of these guys had different reasons why they did what they did, and they all ended up in the same place. 90% of what every one of these guys say has congruency to the other. Max Lugavere has some small differences, but his are all scientific based around dementia and issues as we get older from a brain perspective. And so for Max Lugavere, he's saying, hey, if you eat an animal-based diet plus a few other things, that's going to give you the best probability that you're not going to have any of these mental issues later in life.
For mental cognition.
Exactly. And when I said 90%, the Liver King and Paul Saladino and Max Lugavere all agree that an animal-based diet, which Paul Saladino has defined of what animal-based diet is the optimal diet for humans to eat. Let me explain what an animal-based diet is. Paul Saladino, we're talking about basically red meat. So this is going to be your elk, deer, bison. Venison is usually what all the deers are categorized. So venison, bison, and beef are usually what you're going to see there. And then he gets his carbohydrate sources from raw honey and organic fruits. Okay. And then he has raw dairy in there as well. So raw dairy is equally important because raw dairy has all of the nutrients you need, the micronutrients, to help the body, not only from what you need to function, but also a hydration perspective. And when we heat the milk up, which is what we do modernly to get rid of the bad bacteria from a pasteurization perspective, that was something they put in around 100 years ago because they had a bad batch of milk because the cows got fed the wrong thing, and they realized they had to safeguard people from getting sick. Turns out if you take care of the animals take care of you. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
But all 3 of these guys derived to the same place, and they didn't know each other. They have no influence from outside funding to put them into the place.
No biases, no agendas.
No biases, and they all land in the same place. Well, and these are 3 smart dudes.
Liver King and Paul Saladino, they knew each other through ancestral supplements, but Paul Saladino only found Liver King because he had already gone all the way down.
Exactly. All of these guys now know each other.
In conclusion, but not in the journey.
Yes. At the start of the journey, none of these people knew each other.
Correct.
All the research, all the hours spent.
These guys have all talked
individual
to each other.
paths.
They've all talked to each other. Exactly. So when all 3 of these guys align on an animal-based diet, I go and say, okay, I have 15 years in the fitness and nutrition space. And I look at my journey and I say, holy shit. This, not only is this optimal, and I could prove it to you through my own anecdotes, but if these guys are also saying it and a ton of other people are having success, let's set the record straight on what's going to be the most beneficial. So if you're just getting into nutrition and you're getting to listen to this podcast or hear some of those people talk, wow. Because you're getting it straight out of the gate and you're not going to have to figure it out. So a couple of the topics that I had put together for this specific segment, all right, I had always want to figure out what is my best diet. Okay, so here's I'm going to take you guys through a talking point, a key learning, and a simple takeaway. So my first segment is food is fuel. when I was 17 years old, I wrestled for most of my junior high school and high school, or for all my junior high school and high school career. And one of my talking points is I went from wrestling at 189 pounds to 171 pounds. I had to cut from, I weighed 185 at the time. I had to cut down to 171. When I wrestled at 189 pounds, only weighing 185 pounds, I ate whatever I wanted, and I felt great. And I had never had that much energy in a wrestling match before in my life. When I cut down to 171 pounds, I had no energy to wrestle. Food is fuel is my simple takeaway from this. You must eat to perform. And if you want to develop your body, you must eat. So that's the takeaway. The second piece is the importance of eating to meet your body's needs and activity levels. So I'm going to take you guys through another segment of my journey where I went from 171 pounds at the end of my senior year of high school to 220 pounds. Holla, Alan actually weighed more than I did and had more muscle than I did at the time in 2 years. So Alan and I basically just worked out like monsters, ate, ironically,
everything,
probably a 70% based animal diet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we worked out till failure 5-6 days a week for almost 2 years straight.
Sometimes two times a day.
So that's from 18 to 20 then?
18 to 20. I was 220 pounds. Alan was 240 pounds.
Yeah, it was somewhere right between there.
Lifting big weight at 20 years old. And for males out there between the ages of 18 and 22, your body's a natural testosterone production machine. Do not put steroids in your body. It's producing them naturally.
Yeah. And for those of you off screen thinking I look smaller compared to Curtis, I can stand next to him next time on the podcast. Just don't feel good today.
Clothes are optional.
So the next one is maintenance mode. So you brought this up earlier. I had stopped working out to start a business, which was 3 Ventures. My simple takeaway is it's important to eat during training and non-training days. You need to feed your body to recover, and you need to feed your body to perform. All right? So the last piece is, from a CrossFit perspective, this is a little bit more of a longer story, but I'll take you through a couple of the various key simple takeaways and key learnings. But it's really developing an understanding for how nutrition affects performance. So the talking points here is the old school healthy diet of chicken, rice, and broccoli. And really, that doesn't work long term, because in the order, like the rankings of protein, I rank protein. Protein from chicken is like much lower, like 6 or 7 on the list than some of the other animals that I could eat.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, you do need to eat big, and you need to eat when you're hungry. If your body's hungry, that's your body's way of saying you need to eat.
Listen to your body.
And just know, everybody on this podcast right now, I'm hungry, and I'm sacrificing that so you guys can have this great information.
While they eat.
Thank you, Leighton and Alan.
They're eating.
And there was a point during my CrossFit career that I did go vegan because I was having very bad gastrointestinal issues. I didn't realize much about the gut microbiome. This was, 6 years ago. And I started removing ingredients out of my meal prep one by one. It took me about 8 weeks. And once I removed meat, I stopped having basically issues. I stopped farting. That was really beneficial for me for like 2 months, and really bad for me for like the remaining 4 months. So I went plant-based, and I got off that really quick, because not only did I feel good because I was removing, I removed something that was causing me issues, but what was the actual root problem, not the masked problem, was that the sourcing of the ingredients that I was eating was far more important than the type of food I was eating.
Question. Did you say vegetarian before you explain that? Did you say vegetarian or vegan?
Vegan. So okay. I said plant-based. I wasn't full-blown vegan.
Because I've done full-blown vegan for like 3 or 4 months, and anyone else who says they've done that, I got like mad respect for, or you're like mad crazy. But anyways.
I called it
all of it's hard.
I called it plant-based because I still had leather stuff in my house. But
I'm just saying, I didn't have butter, and I didn't realize how much I love butter, right? Yeah. Honey. And I'm just like, I hate this diet the first day.
Yeah,
like,
so
this isn't fair.
It wasn't full-blown vegan, but it's basically being vegan.
Strict.
So I called it plant-based.
Over 8 weeks, you subtracted.
6 months is how. Oh.
Okay, whatever. It sounds like you subtracted your diet down, whittled it down, and found.
Whittled it down after about 2 months.
Found it wasn't the meat's fault. It's more of sourcing.
It was the meat that was causing the issues, but when I removed the meat, I stopped farting.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, this vegan thing, people are talking about this Game Changers thing came out on Netflix. I think it was like a year or two later after this. But I kind of did some research, and I was like, oh, but hey, there's some people in the space that are full-blown vegan. being vegan sounds nice on the cover. It's like, oh, we get to save the planet and we get to save animals. It's like, pause. When you actually dig into it, you realize that that's nice, but we'll get to why that's not nice, because it really comes down to how the animals are treated in regenerative agriculture. So, you know, kind of going back to why being vegan worked for me temporarily.
Social justice warriors, not you, but for other folks, that's it's more of the idea or idea if you live in the
It's the ideology that it's like, if you're vegan, you're doing the right thing
and
for the
sense
world.
of community, right?
Well, also, it's one of the reasons why the carnivore diet has the same effects as being vegan does. What happens is, being vegan and being carnivore, they're the same in the fact that they're both elimination diets.
Yeah.
One eliminates the other, right? And so when you think about that, they both work because what you're actually doing is you're removing the harmful products that are associated with preservatives, glyphosate, everything else that's in there. And what you're doing is, like you said earlier, in the gut microbiome health, what you're doing is, by removing those, you're actually changing your gut microbiome health. And that's what people who go on those, they have good results short term. But like this whole podcast has been talking about, this is long-term sustainable for life. And so now continue.
Yeah. So to that point,
yeah,
when I removed the meats, one, I didn't have red meats in my diet. I had a lot of white meats, so like chicken.
Which was a mistake, but at that time, with your knowledge,
it's not as nutrient dense. So I thought I was doing the right thing at the right time. So I was like, hey, this being vegan thing is cool. Well, I stopped eating dairy and I was able to breathe better and a couple other things. I'm like, wow, I felt great for 2 months. And then I really started to feel like shit the next 4 months.
Yeah.
So I added seafood in. Back in my day, I was like, oh, I could be like pescatarian. So I ate some seafood and I was like, wow, I feel great. And I smashed another workout. And then I realized, like, wait, I added an animal product back in and I felt better. Full-blown switch to an animal-based style diet, where instead of not eating red meat, I started eating a lot more red meat.
Yeah.
And then what it really came down to, what I started to find out, was the sourcing of your ingredients is the most important. So this is why I advocate for an animal-based diet. Monocrop agriculture, mono being singular, agriculture being like the growing of food. Everything that you have that's plant-based, it is sprayed with so much toxic stuff from a variety of different perspectives.
That, and where does it come from? The soil. What's in the soil? We're not really treating our soil. Our soil's supposed to be living. We just keep using the same dirt on the
spraying
surface.
The same shit into the soil, and then that gets into the food.
Yeah, our soils are not happy. Anyways, continue.
So Alan had mentioned glyphosate, right? Yeah. That's actually Roundup. Roundup was no longer going to be produced now by Baird.
Yeah, but there's going to be a spinoff. But yeah, it's trying to just only eat vegetables and not look into the details. That's your own fault. Yeah,
you should assume that any chemical is guilty until proven innocent. That touches your food.
Try growing your own food.
Yes,
and then think about what you eat and X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
I come from farmers. You know, walnut, corn, up in Gridley, Northern California. So I'm no yuppie, but I'm also no country boy. So that's where I have this happy medium.
So everybody's experience with veganism was like really drawing this thing out. But really, what I was trying to say is veganism for me really placed an importance on the food quality and sourcing. So the key learnings that I took away from all of this were your macronutrients. Your total daily calorie and macronutrient intake is the key to recovery. So on a vegan diet, you might be able to meet your macronutrient profile, but you're not actually getting bioavailable macronutrients.
Explain that.
So bioavailable is where your body can actually absorb the vitamins and minerals, aka the micronutrients, in your food into the body. And really, a lot of those vitamins and minerals that you get, that are really bioavailable, come in the form of fats.
Okay,
and guess where you get fats from?
Meat, red meat,
animal-based products.
Here's the thing that really blows my mind. Okay, I went on the carnivore diet for hardcore 8 weeks.
I lived with you,
right? Yeah, you can attest to that.
I was there.
Best I've ever felt in my life, and I've since then stayed on a very heavy animal-based diet. What I found when you talk about things being bioavailable was that actually when I went to the bathroom, my stool was significantly less in volume. And then my wife, who was pregnant a couple months later, I kept her going because I do a good majority of the cooking in the house. So she was forced to eat what I was eating. And so she starts eating a lot more meat. And there's two things that happened that really stood this out to me of my cases of why I'm supporting what you're saying. The first one was she asked me, she's like, why is it so small? And I said, because that is because the body is physically digesting almost all of the food that we are eating and turning it down into all of the things that the body needs to function. That's my take on it.
Less waste.
The second thing that really supported this to me is the doctor who delivered our daughter looked at me and goes, I've had thousands of deliveries, and this is the most healthy placenta I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you said that, because I saw a photo of a vegetarian or vegan placenta, and as somebody who ate really high-quality animal-based diet, I'm telling you, if you're a vegan and you saw this picture, you would say, to hell with being a social justice warrior.
Yeah.
I'm going to go learn about regenerative agriculture, and I'm going to realize that if you don't feed cows corn, wheat, and soy, that they don't fart, and if you feed them what they're naturally supposed to eat like humans, you have less of the greenhouse gas emissions. And so it's actually better for the environment, not worse, because there's carbon capture in the ground on regenerative agriculture. When you see that placenta, you would shit yourself and say, my child was born on a vegan diet like this. You have already put your child behind. That picture, they say pictures say 1,000 words. That picture is ingrained in my head, and I am seeing it right now. And I hope that whoever is a vegan goes and looks this up. Vegan placenta versus animal-based placenta. Find the image on Google Images.
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now, and I'll let you guys continue to talk. We'll pull it up before we go.
If you have not had a child yet, you won't understand this, but I've had my first child. Alan's had his first child. Scott has had a child. When you see the birth happen and you realize all of the magic that happens to create a child, and you actually get to see the placenta is the organ of life. Mm-hmm. If that thing looks as bad as it did in the photo that I saw,
it's almost like you're having your kids while you're on drugs.
Exactly. No, it is. Yeah. It's the equivalent. I bet you if you grabbed
a meth placenta.
A meth placenta, and you looked at a vegan placenta and an animal-based placenta, the meth and the vegan placenta would look
You'd be able
to
guess.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be rude, but we have a friend who actually had to go into early labor because they had to induce her into labor because the placenta was failing a couple weeks early.
But we don't know this person's diet, or is this relevant?
She was all vegan.
Okay. So we're not professionals and we don't know all the details, but that does sound...
Well, I can tell you some of the reasons that might correlate to why. So I'm going to jump back into the key learnings here. So I left with total daily calorie and macronutrient intake as the key to recovery. Okay. Another key learning is don't eat a low-fat diet, as they are deficient in bioavailable micronutrients. You actually need to have fat in your diet. So these diets where you don't have red meat in your diet, I want to put a very clear stipulation here. You want to be eating grass-fed, grass-finished, wild red meat. You do not want industrialized meat fed corn, wheat, and soy, because the omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid profile in those meats is, generally speaking, in industrialized farms, about 12-1 versus grass-fed, grass-finished is about 1.2 to 2-1. So the key takeaway here is the omega-6s increase the inflammation in the body, and you want to have less of those. And so when you eat a better taken care of animal, you are going to get a better product. And so the animal fat part of this is really why I advocate for an animal-based diet, especially whole milk. If you suffer with being like chronically dehydrated, raw milk is one of the best things that you could do to hydrate yourself, because it has the proper micronutrient profile that are bioavailable for your body to actually be hydrated. Hydrated is not just the water you drink, it is the micronutrients in the blood as well. So the next piece is your body needs carbohydrates and is necessary for optimal energy levels. I am very sorry to everybody out there who is keto, even though keto technically would fall under an animal-based diet.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Keto is a tool, not a diet. And it's not something that you would probably see done in full-blown, like non-modern lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Your body does work with it, but your body needs carbohydrates. And so I'm not knocking ketones, because ketones play a very important role, and this is a bodily function. And if you do fasting or anything like that, you may put your body in ketosis. But again, it's a tool, not a diet. That's my perspective on it. And I'd like to talk with somebody a little bit more, because everything that I've read and the people that I follow in the space are all saying a very similar thing. And I've personally said that it's a tool, not a diet. That's my own statement. Number 4 is, the best source of protein is grass-fed and finished red meat. That's venison, bison, and beef. On my last point, I forgot to say something here, but you want to prioritize carbohydrates from fruit, honey, and dairy. You don't want to add sugar, refined grains, and processed foods. So the 5th one is saturated fats are good and critical for bodily function. Think raw whole milk, cheese, butter, ghee, tallow, and fatty meats. Saturated fats have been demonized. We could talk about that on a subsequent episode, but just know that saturated fats are actually what you want. And then the 6th one is hydration is water plus micronutrients. A lot of people may overlook this, but you need sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus along with water to be hydrated. You can find all of these in dairy and fruits. If you drink a glass of whole raw milk and you eat fruits, you're going to be better from a hydration perspective on a daily basis.
Let me add to this as a everyday Joe. I like liquid IV.
Yes.
I like to stay hydrated. I like to get my vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, and then God, what's the other product? There's liquid IV, and then there's also LMNT. The letter L, the letter M, the letter N, the letter T. When you go and you look at what's in all these things,
it's what you need.
It's everything that I'm talking about minus the water, because you put these in water.
Mm-hmm.
It's the optimal profile that you need on a daily basis as a human being. From a hydration perspective, everything feels harder than it is when you're not hydrated. My Whoop strap data, I can attest to this. On a couple of days where I've been dehydrated, I go and I do a workout. My heart rate is 12 to 20 beats higher than it normally should be, and I feel like I get floored in a workout. So this is that whole prepare more piece.
You should have drank.
You should have taken
the day
care of
before and the morning of.
Yeah, so not being hydrated will result in a reduction in blood volume, decreased skin blood flow, decreased sweat rate, increased core temperature. When your body temperature increases, your ability to move decreases past a certain temperature, and an increased rate of muscle glycogen use. Glycogen is the fuel source for your muscles immediately, and if you're dehydrated, you're going to deplete those sources a lot faster. All of these are negatively impact your ability to perform at your highest level. And then 7 is ingredient sourcing. Raw/lightly pasteurized, non-homogenized dairy, grass-fed, grass-finished red meat, pasture-raised organic eggs, organic fruits, raw honey, and organic for everything when possible is really what I mean by ingredient sourcing. We won't dive into why that's important, but there's a lot of evidence if you go and do some Google searches. And then really is, that was my nutrition takeaway. So how I got there is, as a recap, the old school bodybuilder diet. I then went into a vegan diet, and then I went a full-blown animal-based diet. I've tried a variety of different things, and I put those things in serious practice. You guys know me. I cook in my household every Sunday. I eat the way I eat. You guys have seen me eat.